All right, you guys, this is chapter 10, which is titled Calculation of Medication for Special Populations Based on Body Weight and Patient Age. This is lecture 4. Again, as usual, I start off with the disclaimer that you guys should have already read your book for chapter 10. You should have already reviewed the PowerPoint and read the lecture notes. So, at the end of lecture 3, I stopped at example 10-8. And so basically what I have been doing is I've been showing you problems where you would have to use pediatric formulas based off of the information that's given. I want to keep practicing those examples. So I want you guys to turn to page 370 and let's look at example 10-9 on page 370. And this example reads that a physician orders amoxicillin for a 5-year-old child. The adult dose is 500 milligrams per dose. What dose would be given to the child? So again, what I do is I pull out the information that's needed. So very first thing I'm going to pull out is the patient's info. All right. Well, the patient is 5 years of age. The next thing I'm going to pull out is the adult dose. I'm going to abbreviate that as AD for adult dose. And it says the adult dose is what? 500 milligrams per dose. All right. And the question is, what would the dose be for the child? So for this 5-year-old child, what will the dose be? Well, in order to calculate that, or the question is, what is it asking you? It's asking you in detail to calculate the what? Dose order. The dose order isn't given to you within this problem. All right, you have to calculate that. So based off of the information that's given to you, it gives you the patient's age in years, and it also gives you the average adult dose. Well, you know that you're going to use one of those 3 formulas. And because they give you the patient's age in years, you're going to use the Young's rule, which I abbreviate as FR. And just think of Young's for years, where you're going to take the patient's age in years. And remember, they have to be 12 months or older in order to use the Young's rule. So you have to take their age in years, which is 5, over their age, which is 5 plus 12, and multiply it by that adult dose of 500 milligrams. Well, I solve it step by step. Well, 5 plus 12 is what? 17. Multiply that by 500 milligrams. So if you take 5 over 17 multiplied by 500 milligrams, what is your answer? And I want you to round it to the 10th place. Well, you get 147.05 milligrams, but rounded to the 10th place is what? 147.1 milligrams per dose. That is how you would calculate the dose for that patient. All right. Let's go ahead and do some examples of these rules and when you would use these rules. So I'm going to get a new document here. And I want you guys to remain on page 370, and we're going to do practice problems E. All right. So starting with number 1. Well, let's just read the instructions. It says calculate the following doses of medication. Show your calculations, being sure that you round to the nearest hundredth for dosing calculations. Round to the nearest tenth when providing volume calculations, unless otherwise noted. Use a calculator as permitted by the instructor. So yes, you can use a calculator. So when we're calculating the dose, it wants us to round it to the 100th place. And if we're calculating the volume, if applicable, you need to round to the 10th place. So let's look at number 1. Number 1 reads that a physician orders milk of magnesia for a 3-year-old child. The adult dose for milk of magnesia is 30 milliliters. What volume of milk of magnesia should be given to the child? So as usual, you're going to pull out the information that you need. So for a patient, we know that this patient is 3 years old. And we also have an information here is the adult dose. I abbreviate that as AD, is 30 milliliters. All right. So, which rule? So the question is, what is the volume per dose for this child? So first things first, you are going to use the Young's rule. Why is that? Because number 1, based off of the information they give you the patient's age in years, and they give you the adult dose, which is 30 milliliters. You're going to have to use the Young's rule, because the Young's rules is years, the patient's age in years, over that age plus 12 times the adult dose. But remember, the rule is only used if the patient is what? 12 months and older, because 12 months is 1 year. So I am going to take 3 over 3 plus 12 and multiply it by 30 milliliters. I'm going to show you guys step by step how I'm going to solve that. So that's 3 plus 12 is what? 15. Multiply that by 30 milliliters. So 3 over 15 times 30 gives you 6 milliliters. This is the dose ordered. They're going to receive 6 milliliters per dose. Let's look at number 2. Number 2 reads that a physician ordered or wants a 6-month-old patient or 6-month-old child to have phenobarbital. The usual adult dose, which is the average adult dose, is 30 milligrams. The medication in stock, they tell you, is phenobarbital elixir, 20 milligrams per 5 milliliter. The first question is, A, what dose of medication should be given to the child? So in detail, what they want you to do is they want you to calculate the dose ordered. In order to do that, you have to use one of those three formulas. Is it the Young's rule? Is it the Clark's rule? Or is it the Fry's rule? Well, it's based off of the information that's given you as far as the patient. In this case, the patient's information is 6 months. So you know that one of those rules deals with the patient's age in months, as long as their months is 11 and below. So I am going to use the what? We're going to use the Fry's rule in order to calculate that. All right, I'm going to use another document here so you guys can follow. I'm still on number 2. So we know that we're going to use the Fry's rule for number 2. And in order to use the Fry's rule, we're going to take the child's age in months, which is 6 months, over 150 and multiply it by that adult dose of what? 30 milligrams. So if I take 6 over 150 and multiply it by 30, that gives you 1.2 milligrams. This is the dose ordered for this patient, is 1.2 milligrams. So that is the answer for question A. Well, B, they want to know what volume of medication should be administered with each dose. So in detail, this question is asking you for you to calculate. They want you to calculate the volume, which is basically milliliters per dose. In order to do that, you have to use the dosage formula, or the formula method of dose ordered over dose available times the quantity. Well, you calculated the dose ordered. Remember, your dose ordered is 1.2 milligrams. So I'm going to take 1.2 milligrams over what's the availability of the drug. The availability of the drug, we know, is 20 milligrams. And you multiply it by the quantity that's associated to that 20 milligrams, which is 5 milliliters. Well, milligrams cross out. If I take 1.2 over 20 and multiply it by 5, you get 0.3 milliliters per dose. So, as you can see from number 2, the doctor does not provide on the order the detailed dose ordered. You have to calculate that based off of the information. And we've calculated that the dose ordered is 1.2 milligrams. But now the question is, for question B, how many milliliters of that stock solution will give you 1.2 milliliters? Well, 5 milliliters gives you 20 milligrams. Well, you know that 5 milliliters won't be your answer for the volume because the patient needs 1.2 milligrams, not 20. So in order to calculate that volume, you take that dose ordered, which is 1.2 milligrams, over the dose available, which is 20 milligrams, and multiply it by the quantity of 5 milliliters, which is associated to the 20 milligrams. And that tells you that a patient that is 6 months old will receive 0.3 milliliters of this phenobarbital medication. All right, you guys, I've come to an end for lecture 4. I'll pick back up lecture 5 with another section of chapter 10. All right. If you have any questions, always feel free to send me an email.